I'm Julia, and welcome back to Race to Win, the sailing podcast where we use 3D replays of actual races to discuss sailing tactics, the rules, and lots more. One of the first things you learn about how to race a sailboat is that you should be coming up in the puffs to get a little extra traction upwind, and then down in the lulls to maintain good speed. To get the most out of your boat sailing upwind, it's a little more complex than just pushing the tiller, coming up in the puffs, and steering down in the lulls. You need to practice something called changing gears. So what is that changing gears? It's an analogy that some of you might have heard before. So just like in a car, you have some choices to make when sailing about power versus speed. You pick the gear you need in a sailboat, not by shifting with a stick, but by changing your wind angle, also known as the angle of attack. This is the angle between the center line of your boat and the apparent wind. So basically, you're sailing along in the groove, and you're going to change gears by making tiny adjustments to your sails and your heading in a very calculated way to accomplish different goals, like maximizing your VMG or maximizing your pointing to get further upwind. So first is first gear. This is what you're going to use in light air. Maybe it's a bit choppy, or mostly it's going to be your maximum acceleration gear when you're just coming off the starting line or you need a lot of power to accelerate. In first gear, you're going to be pressing the jib, which means you're bearing off the wind far enough that both your windward and leeward telltales are flowing straight aft. If either one is lifting, you're sailing too high or too low. When you're close to full speed, but you still need to accelerate, you're going to be in footing mode, which is second gear. In second gear, you should see the windward telltales lifting just a little bit, but you should not see the jib luffing at all. Third gear is what I like to call in the groove. This is where you're going for best speed and the maximum available VMG. It's your cruising speed. This is where most people are about 50 to 60% of the time. In this gear, you should see that windward telltale lifting quite a bit, really chattering, about 45 degrees. And you might even see the front of the jib luffing just a little bit. The secret of this chattering gear, or third gear, is that you have to let out the main sheet to the point where the top telltale on the main is fully flying, always visible, streaming. Letting out the main a little bit increases the twist just a tiny bit, which gives you a little bit more power, but less pointing ability. The next gear is the pointing gear, fourth gear, which is when you're trying to take a bite out of that windward position. You're sailing a little bit higher than you probably should be. You're either feathering up in a puff or you're pinching. The only difference is if you're feathering, you're doing it on purpose. If you're pinching, it's on accident. And then fifth gear. This is a rare gear. It's very slow. This is when you're luffing the front of the jib, backwinding it. It's only used when you need to get really, really high. So that's it, gears 1 through 5. Now, what's the point of all this? We never sail in just one gear for the entire time. You should be shifting gears about every 10 seconds. So let's imagine you're riding a bike and you see a big hill coming up. What are you going to do? You're going to downshift your gears before you get there to give you that extra power you need to get up that hill. However, if you wait too long and you try to shift gears on the hill, it's too late. You've missed your opportunity to accelerate and to get into that right gear. It's the exact same thing when you're changing gears on a sailboat. You have to anticipate the wind shifts and shift gears about half a boat length or about 3 to 4 seconds before the wind shift. So get out there and practice changing gears in a beer can or local race environment. Learn how to read the puffs and the lulls, or find somebody who can. And then learn how to shift gears, and then learn how to shift gears in the puffs and the lulls. Come up in the puffs, shifting gears up. Come down in the lulls, shifting gears down. I am really looking forward to talking more about this topic and how this whole shifting gears thing can totally change your windward performance. But I think that's enough for one day, so I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find more on our website, www.racecues.com/podcast, or search for Race Cues on iTunes and click subscribe.